I need to get this guy over here. Boy, these TV people, aren't they a pain, huh?
I'm not even one of them.
Gotta break you in right here. Okay. I'll try to do it. My trouble is I have too much stuff. I have about 10 hours of this stuff, so I have to sort it out what I'm going to do wherever I am. Last night I did a bunch of adult stuff up in Long Lake with Dan Bergeron and let's see who all was there. Joan Crane. You ever hear of Joan Crane? She's from around this area. Real good guitar player. She got an award last year, year before last. She won the best female guitar player in the national guitar picking thing or something. And there was a couple other gals there, some other guys. We had a great time. In fact, I think we had too good of a time. I'm a little foggy this morning. All right, we'll get started. I grew up the youngest of 10 kids back in the hills in a township of Colton in St. Lawrence County, and we didn't have much. We lived back in the hills, and we had a farm. We had about 10 or 15 cows we milked every night and morning by hand. We didn't have electricity. Can you kids imagine what it would be like coming home at night and not being able to turn on your television set? Yeah. We used to turn on the cows. So we got milk cows for excitement. We used to, I'll give you a typical day. We got up in the morning. My mother and us kids took care of the farm. See, we took care of the cows and all that. My dad worked in the logging camp. He ran a logging camp, actually. He was what they called a jobber, straw boss, like and they'd hire out to a logging company and run their own camp and have a bunch of men working for them. So he did that. Nice dog you got there. 2 of them. They don't bite, do they? Okay. I'm scared to death of dogs that bite. I used to be a milkman. I'm still allergic to that. Dogs that bite. Anyway, we would get up in the morning, us kids, about somewhere between 5 and 5:30, 6 o'clock. And somebody would be appointed by my mother to go get the cows, and somebody else would be appointed to milk the cows, and we had to grain them and throw down hay and all this stuff. And then we would come in the house and have breakfast. Some of the kids would already be taking their bath in a galvanized tub while some of them were eating, and the rest of them would get done eating and switch off and take their bath in the galvanized tub while the other ones were eating their breakfast. And then we had to walk to school about 3 miles, and we had a one-room schoolhouse, and we had one teacher in there. God bless her poor old soul, Mrs. Corcoran. She went through a lot with a bunch of us, and loved that woman to death. Probably next to my mother, I love Mrs. Corcoran more than anybody in the whole world. And she was a wonderful person. And let's see, when school was out, we walked back home. We went back to the barn, put our barn clothes back on, and we went out and did the chores that we didn't get finished up in the morning. Did I mention that we had breakfast? Yeah, we did do that. Okay. Then we would come go get the cows about 5 o'clock or so, and get them in the barn, and run in the house and get a good fast supper into you, and back out and finish milking the cows. And then when you got through with all that chores, then you had to bring in wood and fill the wood box and all that. Then you had to take another bath in the galvanized tub again, and then you had to do your schoolwork. But I'll admit, we didn't have anywhere near the schoolwork to do at night in those days that you kids have today, because we teachers and people that ran the schools realized that a lot of these kids were farm kids and they had chores to do, and they couldn't spend half the night doing schoolwork. They had other things to do, and things are a whole lot different in those days. It didn't go anywhere near as fast. That's why I'm always late getting where I'm going, because I can't do anything fast. Or as we say up here in the North Country, I can't do nothing fast. All right. You know, I was looking around when I came in here, and I saw a little guy over here, and he was running his finger up his nose, clear to his first knuckle there. And it reminded me of this song. Don't stick your finger up your nose, because your nose knows it's not the place it goes. You can sniffle, you can sneeze, but I'm asking please, oh, don't stick your finger up your nose. Can you guys sing that? That's the chorus, alright, try it. Don't stick your finger up your nose, cause your nose knows it's not the place it goes. You can sniffle, you can sneeze, but I'm asking please, oh, don't stick your finger up your nose. Come on, dog girls, sing it. Don't stick your finger in your eye, or else you're gonna start right in to cry. Oh, you wink it, you can blink it, but I don't think it would be good to stick your finger in your eye. Help me now, don't stick your finger up your nose, cause your nose knows it's not the place it goes. You can sniffle, you can sneeze, but I'm asking please, oh, don't stick your finger up your nose. Ear, or else you're going to find it hard to hear. You can plug it, you can tuck it, you can tuck it, but please don't plug it, don't stick your finger in your ear. Don't stick your finger up your nose, cause your nose knows it's not the place to go. You can whistle, you can sneeze, but I'm asking please, oh, don't stick your finger up your nose. You know that? I can tell by the smile on your face that you're going to like it. Don't stick your finger down your throat, or else you're going to start right in the choke. And up will come your dinner, and you start to look at dinner. Now don't stick your finger. Don't stick your finger up your nose, because your nose knows it's not the place to go. You can sniffle, you can sneeze, but I'm asking please, oh, don't stick your finger up your nose. Sit down, little girl. Okay.
I'll take this one.
All right. He's doing just fine. Got a good smile on him anyway. I tell people, you know, of all the things that ever was toward making life worthwhile, that costs the least and does the most is just a pleasant smile. It's full of mirth and goodness too, with heavenly kindness blent. It's worth $1 million and it doesn't cost a cent. You talk to your folks about that and they'll tell you that's the truth. You go into some of these stores today and some of these young folks at the cash register don't want to be there and they're acting like this and throwing stuff left and right, and you have to say to them, why are you working here if you hate it that day? You know, I'd go find a job I love, or else I'd go on welfare or something. I wouldn't do that if I didn't want to do it. I've never done anything my whole life I didn't want to do anyway, so we don't want to get into that part of my life. All right. When I was a kid, my mother let us listen to the battery-operated radio. We had a battery radio, ran off the car battery. You see, we didn't have electricity till I was 17 years old. And the only entertainment you had back in those days that you didn't make yourself, we'd sit on the back porch and play mouth organs and sing songs and play guitars. We had broken guitars and broken fiddles and broken banjos and everything that was broke that somebody else didn't want. We got it. And if it had 2 strings on it, we'd learn somehow how to play that thing. And so we did a lot of that stuff. But we also listened to that radio. And there was a feller in the morning called Lee Moore. And he called it Coffee Drinking Nighthawk. And Lee Moore just died a couple of years ago. And I love that guy, boy. I used to listen to him all the time. Got to meet him 3 or 4 times. That was some of the highlights of my doing what I do. And Lee Moore used to have about a half hour in the morning of showing kids how to play a guitar. And he would tell you your fingers, you know, this is your thumb and your first finger and all this stuff, and down to your pinky. And these things going across the guitar were called frets, and these other strings going things going this way were strings. And if you took this finger and put it here, and you took that finger and put it there and there, and you strummed it like that, not going any higher than the highest string that your finger was on would be your bass string, and make up that was called a C chord. And then he would show you how to do an F chord, and that was hard because you had to cover two strings with one finger, and that was a good test for you to see if you were coming along right. And then your G or your G7, and then back, and then after a while he showed you how to go. Show you how to do those, he called them runs. And I learned to do some of that stuff, and when I was 10, I started playing at square dances with the fiddle players around the North Country. And I did that, or still doing it. Donnie Woodcock and I play together all the time. We do a lot of shows. Donnie's a great fiddler. Anyway, one of the songs that Lee Moore used to sing in the morning was "The Cat Came Back." You kids ever hear that? Fred Penner and some of the Canadian singers and that have the Canadian TV shows and that, they sing that today. I'll do you some of the versions that I learned when I was a kid, the verses. And I'm going to throw in one modern one, all right? Well, let's see, what key do I want to do? Every day I'm in a different key, because we have more pollen some days than we do other days. And since I've been out working the night before, my voice is deeper the next day than it was the day before and all that. Let's see. Well, old Mr. Johnson had some troubles of his own. An old yellow tomcat wouldn't leave home. Well, he tried everything he could to keep the cat away, and he took him off to Canada and left him there to stay. But the cat came back. Very next day, the cat came back. Thought he was a goner, but the cat came back, 'cause he wouldn't stay away. Now the fella on the corner said he'd shoot the cat on sight, loaded up his gun full of nails and dynamite. That old gun went off, heard all over town, and little bitty pieces of the man was all that's found. But the cat came back. Next day the cat came back. Thought he was a goner, but the cat came back, 'cause he wouldn't stay away. Now they gave him to a fella going up in a balloon, said, "Here, leave him off with the man in the moon." Well, the balloon it busted for Earth did head, and 10 miles away they picked the man up dead. But the cat came back. Very next day the cat came back. Thought he was a goner, but the cat came back, 'cause he wouldn't stay away. Now they gave a boy $1 to set the cat afloat, took him up the river in a bag in a boat. And everything was fine till the news got around that the boat was sunk and the boy was drowned. But the cat came back. Very next day the cat came back. Thought he was a goner, but the cat came back, 'cause he wouldn't stay away. Now they finally found the way that cat for to fix would have been an orange crate on Route 56. Along came a log truck, 20-ton load, and it scattered that orange crate up and down the road. But the cat came back. Very next day the cat came back. Thought he was a goner, but the cat came back, 'cause he wouldn't stay away. Now you guys don't abuse cats and dogs, do you? You know this song is just kind of stupid, don't you, huh? You do? You abuse cats and dogs? No, you don't do that. No, with them little blue eyes, you wouldn't do that. Well, I'm telling you this because I don't want you to ever try doing what comes in this next verse, all right? Now, they took him to the shop where the meat got ground. Threw him in the hopper when the butcher wasn't around. That cat disappeared with a blood-curdling shriek, and the whole town's meat tasted furry for a week. But oh, he wasn't gone, but the cat came back, but he wouldn't stay away. Here's the modern verse here. They took him to Cape Canaveral. They put him in a place in the back of a rocket ship going into space. Everybody thought the cat was out of human reach, and they got a phone call from Miami Beach, and the cat next day the cat thought he was a god, but the cat came back, but he wouldn't stay away. Old Mr. Johnson said the cat could stay, so he loaded up his pickup and he moved away. No one's ever seen Mr. Johnson since, but that cat's still there, sleeping under the bench. Cat's still there with all 9 lives. Cat's still there with 27 kittens and a half a dozen wives. Well, the cat was a bigamist, wasn't it? That's what you call somebody that has a whole bunch of wives, I think. Something like that. Anyway, let's see here. We might as well do another song. Who likes to chew gum? Come on in. You love to play with it?
No.
Oh, I love to do all that stuff with it.
Daddy likes to nibble.
Chomp, chomp, nibble, nibble, yum, yum, yum. Well, I like chewing on my chewing gum. My chewing gum so good and sweet, it just makes me happy from head to feet. I like to pull my gum out far and pluck it like an old guitar. I wrap it around my tongue with care, 'cause nobody likes gum in their hair. Yum, like this. Chomp, chomp, nibble, nibble, yum, yum, yum. Well, I like chewing on my chewing gum. My chewing gum so good and sweet, it just makes me happy from head to feet. Oh, let's see here. I haven't sung this in about 47 years. I'll do another verse and I'll think of the other one, alright? My gum makes pops and cracks and clicks against my teeth and against my lips. When I'm all alone and no one else is around, I just love getting that chewing gum sound. Chomp, chomp, nibble, nibble, yum, yum, yum. Well, I like chewing on my chewing gum. Chewing gum so good and sweet, it just makes me happy from my head to my feet. Now blowing a bubble gets mighty tough. Gotta stick your tongue out just far enough. Stand back from where you are and you can blow you a bubble the size of a car. Chomp, chomp, nibble, nibble, yum, yum, yum. I like chewing on my chewing gum. My chewing gum so sweet, it makes me happy from my head to my feet. Sometimes when I'm chewing my chewing gum, I like to make it flat with the top of my tongue. I make it flat and I take it out, and there's a little gnat on the roof of my mouth. Chop, chop, nibble, nibble, yum, yum, yum. Well, I like chewing on my chewing gum. Chewing gum so good and sweet, it just makes me happy from my head to my feet. Oh, Roger Miller. Let's see here. We'll sing some more songs before I get through with this. I grew up, oh, I'm so lucky. I'm one of the luckiest guys in the whole world. I grew up with a wonderful parents that loved me and all that. We didn't have much money, but we didn't need much money. We raised all of our own crops, most generally, and we ate a lot of deer meat and a lot of fish and that. And I joke now, of course I don't break laws anymore, but where I come from, they broke some laws. And we used to hunt, and we used to laugh about hunting season started the 4th of July and ended about the 3rd. So we ate a lot of deer meat and all that stuff, see. So, where was I going with this thing? Wasn't there. Well, what was I going to do? Okay, I don't remember what it was. Oh yes, I do too. I grew up around a lot of Indians, Native American people, see? They were Mohawk people from Akwesasne. That's where I was leading to with this. We had all our own food and all this stuff, and we got to meet a lot of great people because our place became the pickup point for the tote wagons. All the men were carried into the woods to do their logging and hunting and all this stuff in tote wagons. We lived near what they call the Grand Shoe Track. Did you kids know that the Adirondacks are laid out in land tracks and they have numbers and names that go with them? Well, they are. And you can talk to your teachers and your parents and they'll tell you some of the names of those. The one where I lived was called the Grand Shoe Track. And it was about 40 miles long and about 40 miles wide. And there was 3 roads that went up in there. Somebody put a lot of thought into naming these roads. Upper, middle, and lower tote road. Someone stayed up all winter just figuring that out, so that when spring comes they'd have a place to go. And so they, there was Polish guys that worked in the woods. There was Swedish guys that worked in the woods. And there was Russian fellers that worked in the woods. And a lot of the French fellow there, they worked in the woods too, them. And then there was a lot of Native Americans, and I'm leaving out a whole bunch of people because there was a lot of different nationalities that worked in the woods. Scottish and Irish guys and all this. So I got to meet a whole lot of great people. And the Native American people made baskets in the summertime. All these other folks would come out most generally and go somewhere and work on a farm or something, or had a farm of their own. But these guys didn't have farms, and they would bring their wives and their kids to our house and put wigwams out in the back meadow out there and cut the ash trees and make baskets. I don't have my basket. I didn't even see the car. Would you get that for me? Which car? One of the baskets. The green one to me, right there. Can't miss it. Yeah, the green one. There's 47 green ones. Anyway, I grew up knowing how to make baskets, see, so I do that too, besides this. But the Native people would sit around at night and tell us stories. They called them legends. And I'm going to tell you a legend that was told to me when I was a kid about why some trees lose their leaves and some don't lose their leaves. Do you ever notice it in wintertime? Because it isn't going to be long, about a month from now. Isn't it awful?
It is.
I have no idea where the summer went to. Thanks, Julie. I'm sorry, that's real heavy. This is an Adirondack pack basket made out of an ash tree. And you cut down the ash tree and you break it apart by hammering on it, busting it apart. So in between, you kids that go to school know that every year a tree puts a new ring on, doesn't it? I do that too, as you know. And every year they put a new ring on, and those yearly rings are all about so thick, and some are thicker than that. And so you take them apart, you hammer on that the whole length of the log, and they'll break apart, and you can use those splits to make these baskets. This is the traditional basket of the Adirondacks. You don't find these anywhere else. And you can go about anywhere you want, and they'll say, "What a lovely basket! My goodness!" So you tell them about that, and they're really surprised to think that we are fortunate enough up here to have our own basket. And so, and of course, we have other kinds that I do some bear stories sometimes. We have mascots and stuff. And in here, if any of you adults are interested, I got books and tapes and all that stuff that I take with me. I don't even go to the bathroom without that basket. And you never know who you might run into that will want to buy a tape or a book. So anyway, you can look at that later. And I'm going to tell you the story why certain leaves fall off on certain trees in the fall, and other ones don't. Now, the native people believed in the Creator, that their Creator, the Great Spirit, the Creator, made the earth and all this stuff. In fact, it was a giant turtle, that's what it was. But anyway, we won't get into that part of it because it gets a little complicated. The Great Spirit put all the people and all the creatures and all the plants and all the animals and everything on the earth. And he kept an eye on them, and he was watching to see which ones were behaving themselves and which ones weren't. And you can go about anywhere you want, and you'll find that people are pretty good, but there's going to be one or two in that bunch somewhere that don't like the mind too well. And the Creator, he knew about this stuff, and he was watching all this stuff. And it turned out it was in the fall of the year, like right about, in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now. And all the birds decided that they should fly south where it was going to be warmer because they could feel it getting cooler and cooler, and they thought they should go south. Except one little bird had broken his wing, fallen out of his nest, broken his wing, and he couldn't fly. His wing wasn't healed good enough yet. And every time he tried to fly, he would get up into the air, and the one wing wouldn't go, and the other one would go, and he'd go around in circles, and he'd fall back to the ground again. He couldn't go. And the other birds finally all left. By about the middle of October, they were gone. Or beginning of October, they were gone. And so the little bird, he just didn't know what to do. So he thought, the birch tree looks like a pleasant tree. I'll go and talk to the birch tree and see if I can spend the winter in the birch tree's branches. So the little bird hobbled over to the birch tree. Oh, Mrs. Birch Tree, you're so pretty, and your bark is so pretty and white and everything. And your leaves look so soft and velvety. You suppose I could spend the winter in your limbs? Because I've broken my wing and I can't fly, and I would like a place to stay for the winter. And the birch tree says, oh, I don't like birds. I don't want any birds around me, and I really don't want you here. He says, go away, I don't want you around me. So the little bird felt really bad, and she went off, and she's thinking, must be the birch tree is timid, her branches are timid, she's afraid I'll break them or something. And so she went over to the big old strong oak tree. She said, Mrs. Oak Tree, can I spend the winter in your branches? You're so big and strong, you could hold me up real nice, and your leaves are thick and everything. I could hide in there and get shelter and that, and it would be a nice place to spend it. And the oak tree says, oh, go away, I don't want any birds roosting in my trees. My goodness, if they eat up the acorns, and I won't be able to reproduce and have new babies and all this stuff because you'll eat up all my acorns and everything, and I don't want you roosting in my tree. And the little bird just fell off and put her head down, and she kind of flew off and hopped away. And she was going along, and she saw the willow tree. And the willow tree was kind of blowing in the breeze, and the leaves were hanging down, and had those long stems hanging down and stuff. And she thought, oh, that looks so inviting and so soft. I'll go ask the willow tree. She looks real pleasant. So she goes and asks the willow tree. The willow tree said, go away, go away. She said, I don't like anyone around me. She said, I'm very shy. And she was blowing her, and she said, you just make me so nervous when anybody, and her leaves were going, and her limbs were going, and everything. Oh, the little bird fell off. So she didn't know what to do. She said, I'm going to have to go south, I guess, with the other birds, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. So she got a real good run, and she leaped into the air and started fluttering her wings, and that one didn't go very good. So she'd go around in circles for a little ways and fall back to the ground. And she did that for quite a while. And was real tired. And she decided to walk away and hop along on the ground. And all at once she heard a voice say, little bird, where are you going? And the little bird said, I don't know. She said, I'm trying to go south, which is I can't fly, I'm having an awful time. And she looked up, and it was the spruce tree. And the spruce tree said, well, why don't you sleep in my branches this winter and give your wing a chance to heal up? You can stay on my branches on the south side where it's nice and warm, they're nice and thick in there, and you can crawl in there and stay there and give your branches a chance to, or give your wing a chance to heal up. So the little bird said, oh, can I really do that? Oh, sure. And all of a sudden, the little bird heard another voice, a big, deep voice, that said, and I'll help too. And I can protect you from the north wind. And the little bird looked up, and it was the big pine tree with its big branches. And it said, I'll keep the north wind out, and you can live in the little spruce tree, and you can be safe over there. And all at once, the little bird heard another voice way down on the ground. Said, and I can help too. She said, I'm the juniper. See me down here? I'm close to the ground. And I have little green berries. See the little green berries? And you can eat those green berries all winter. When you feel like jumping down, well, you can just jump down and have some green berries. And when you get full, you can jump back up into the tree and keep away from and the pine tree and the spruce tree will keep you from the wind. And then they heard another voice. The little bird heard another voice. And the voice said, I'm the cedar tree. I'm over here. See me over here by the swamp? I'm the cedar tree, and I've got medicine in my leaves. And if you pick my leaves and chew them, you'll get an oil out of there, and that will make your wing heal better. It's a medicine that will help you. So the little bird stayed in the spruce tree, and the north wind couldn't get to the spruce tree because of the big pine tree. And it ate the cedar, and its little wing was getting better, and it ate the berries from the little juniper. And along about the middle of October, the north wind and the frost got together to frolic one night and go out and play. And they said, Great Spirit, where can we play? And the Great Spirit said, you can play anywhere you want, and you can touch and freeze anything you want. But don't touch those spruce trees and the pine trees and the junipers and the cedars and all the trees that were good to the little bird. I don't want you touching those trees, but you can do anything you want with the rest of them. And so the north wind and the frost, and they laid out there in the morning, everything was sparkly, and it wasn't very long, and the big oak tree was shivering and all this. And the willow tree was shaking, and the leaves were starting to get yellow and fall off, and all the trees that weren't good to the little bird were losing their leaves were falling off, and they were very cold, and they just kind of went into shock because they were so surprised with all this. And the other trees, of course, kept their needles all winter and their leaves all winter because they were good to the little bird. And I used to hear that story whenever you know how sometimes you're kind of cruel to things when you're little, and you'll take something and maybe poke it harder than you should or something? That's a good message. So don't be mean to things, and don't be selfish about sharing things. And so we used to hear a lot of those kind of stories. Every fall, when I see the leaves falling, I think of that. Another thing that happened way back at the beginning of time when the Great Spirit had put everything on the earth was the bear used to have a long tail. Did you know that? Way back at the very beginning, the bear had a beautiful, long, black, shiny tail like a fox, only it was black like his fur was. And old bear got up one morning and he stretched and he stepped outside of his cave and he looked, and the snow was on the ground and the ponds were frozen and looked like looking glasses out there. Oh, it's beautiful. And he looked out across the lake and he saw a dot out there. And he said, I wonder what that is. So being curious, he took a stroll down by the lake and he looked, and there was Fox out there on the lake. And he was coming across the lake and he had a big stringer of fish over his shoulder. All he could drag fish on his shoulder. And the bear said, oh, I love fish. He said, where did you get those fish, Fox? Oh, Fox said, I caught them over there in the bay. He said, nothing to catch fish. He said, you want to catch some fish? And old bear said, oh, of course I want to catch some fish. So he said, I love fish. So the fox said, come here. He said, I'll show you how to catch them fish. So the fox, he goes over to the bay in the corner and he said, all you got to do, he said, is break a hole through the ice with the heel of your foot there. Bump it a couple of times. And he said, break a chunk out of there. He said, stick your tail down through that hole. Crook your tail up on the end a little bit. And he said, and when you feel the fish tug on that, he said, jump up quick and yank your tail up out of there. And he said, you'll catch fish. So So old bear, he sat there, and the fox, he stuck his tail down to the hole, and the fox, he took his fish, and he was kind of snickering to himself and going along uphill up into the woods, see, and disappeared up toward his den. Then the fox, or the bear sat there and sat there and sat there and sat there, and he sat there all night. And the next morning the fox, of course, he got up, and his little tummy was full, and he stretched, and he looked out across, he saw this big old black thing out there, all covered with snow and everything. He said, that can't be that bear, he's not that stupid. And he went down and took a look, and he said, yeah, he is that stupid. So he went over, and he walked over, and he said, well, bear, have you caught any fish? The bear said, no, I haven't caught a single fish. He said, I haven't got a bite at all. Well, the fox said, maybe you ought to change holes. Maybe there's not any fish in here. He said, why don't you get up, he said, and go make another hole. So old bear, he went to get up and didn't realize it, but his tail had froze in that hole. And when he stood up, snap, and he looked, and his tail was still in that hole, and all he had sticking out behind was a little short stub where that tail had broken off. And oh, he got furious. He said, my beautiful tail, what am I going to do without my beautiful tail? And he turned on that fox, and he said, I'm going to get you, fox. He said, and boy, he chased that fox there up into the hills there. And you know that ever since that bears have always had a short tail, and they hate foxes, and they'll kill every fox they can get a hold of. And that's the story of how the bear happened to have a short tail. All right. My goodness. Oh, okay, no, that's all right. I was thinking I had started at 1:15, but I didn't start at 10:30, about 25 off probably, somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay. When I was a kid, I used to have to do a lot of chores, I want to tell you. And my father was always making out lists and handing them to me. Here, do this, here, do that, do this today, this tomorrow's job is over here, and he would go off into the woods to work, and he would always leave me a list, see. This was on a Sunday afternoon, just in the evening actually. My mother and father sat in the front room, and they had a newspaper that they'd gotten somewhere, and split half that newspaper, and one was reading one part of it and one the other, and they had a kerosene lamp sitting up there on the shelf, and they're like this. And I thought, I can make it upstairs without them seeing me with them newspapers in front of them. They'll never know that I've gone up to bed, and I won't have to get that big long list of work I'm going to have to do this week, because my father's going back in the woods to work in the morning, and he's going to leave me with this list of chores, and I don't want to do that stuff. And so I took out my sneakers and my sock feet, and I started sneaking upstairs. And I got right to that top step, and that thing creaked. There was a crack. Wouldn't you know? My father said, Bill, come on down here. He said, I got something to tell you. I got a list here for you to do while I'm gone. So I went down, and he said, we're getting some new pigs, you know, in about a week. And he said, we need to have that old pig fence fixed down there, and I want you to fix that down by the sugar house. He said, just where that old pig fence is, tear out the old pig fence and put in the new wire. He said, I got some new chicken wire, and I got some new barbed wire. He said, I want you to dig out that old wire all the way around there tomorrow. He said, and I want you to take the barbed wire and put it around the top and bury the chicken wire in the ground so that the pigs can't grow it up from underneath that. He said, fix that up for me, won't you? Well, I took the wheelbarrow, and I took the wire, and I took the hammer and stuck it in my back pocket, see? And this was in the spring of the year. And black flies and mosquitoes were pretty thick. So I got down there and I started working around that fence. And we having dog races, are we? Started working around that fence, and all of a sudden I could hear this noise, see? Now this was during World War II. And we went to school to Mrs. Corcoran, and Mrs. Corcoran had told us that about the Japanese airplanes and the bombing and all this stuff. And she had taken us to a movie, and we had saw airplanes called Zeros. The movie wasn't in color, Mrs. Corcoran explained to us that those airplanes were brown, and that those circles on the side were why they were called zeros, and they were red. And they would bomb American boats, and we saw that happening in the movies. So I'm working away, and I had that hammer in my back pocket, and I was fixing the fence as I went along, sticking it back in my back pocket. I was shoveling it along, taking out old fence, putting in new fence, stringing the barbed wire so the pigs would pick their nose and they wouldn't be able to rip out of there. And all of a sudden I heard this noise. And I thought, good Lord, the Japanese have got over here, and those are zeros I'm hearing, and they're going to blow this place all to pieces, you know. And I looked up over top of the trees, and I didn't see Japanese zeros. You know what I saw? The biggest giant mosquitoes I'd ever seen in my life. Oh my God, they was as big as wild turkeys. And they was coming over top of them trees. They had beaks stuck out in front of them like this, red eyes on them. They was coming down over the top of them trees, headed right for me, you know. And I headed for that house. I hollered, "Ma!" at the top of my lungs. And of course, she couldn't hear me. And I was getting up by the sugar house, and I realized I wasn't going to make it to that house. And boy, them bees, or them, I got so many stupid stories I could have mixed up with. Those mosquitoes swooped down there, and boy, they almost got me. And I run up by the sugar house, and there was one of the big gathering pans that you put sap into. You've seen those that cows drink out of? Turned bottom side up so it wouldn't get water and freeze and bust it, see? So I grabbed that thing and I dove in underneath that pan. I said, there, you can't get me now. And I could hear them walking around, cooking all over on top of that pan. And I said, go ahead, run around there all you want to. You're not going to get me. And they're going around. And all at once, I heard like a drill. And I looked up, and sure enough, they drilled a hole through the bottom of that pan, and one of them big long beaks stuck down to that hole, looking all over. Well, I started digging into the ground, you know, and getting down lower. Pretty soon I heard some more of them crunking around on the top of that thing. They're going all around there. Another little ray of light, another little beak sticking down to there. Looked like soda straws, only they were not quite so big around and longer. And those things are going all around. There's about 8 or 10 of them now. Every little while you hear another ray of light, another beak. Boy, I'm digging down and I'm starting to say prayers that hadn't even been invented yet, see. And all at once, I thought, what am I so frightened for? I got that hammer in my back pocket. I remember that hammer. Well, I took that hammer out of my back pocket. I said, I'll take care of them guys. And I started bending them beaks over. Bong, bong, bong. Like old rusty nail, you know. Left hand, bong, bong, bong. Right hand, bong. Oh, I'm having a great time, see. And another ray of light, another beak. Tunk, tunk, tunk. Another ray of light, another beak. Tunk, tunk, tunk. And pretty soon that old pan was going like this and wavering, and pretty soon another ray of light, another beak. Tunk, tunk, tunk. Well, that's all it took. There were so many mosquitoes hooked onto that sap pan that they flew right off over the trees with that thing and left me there like this. And boy, I saw my chance and I headed for that house, see. I'm hollering, "Ma!" at the top of my lungs, and I was running for all that was in me. And there was 2 of them mosquitoes left. And they swooped down. Now, I had a red patch on the seat of my overalls, see, that my mother had put on there. One of them grabbed me right by that red patch and seat of my breeches. I had on a pair of them suspenders. Now, in the old days, suspenders hooked on here with leather thongs with buttons, see. That was the good kind. These don't work. But those work pretty good. And they were made of real rubber, see. Well, they would really hold your pants up, I want to tell you. So I'm heading up through there, and one of them mosquitoes swooped down, grabbed me by that red patch. I was wondering by the nape of the neck, got a hold of some of them suspenders, see? And I was running for all that was in me, hollering, "Ma!" at the top of my lungs, and I realized I wasn't going anywhere. And I looked, and I was about 30 foot off the ground. That's why I wasn't going anywhere. Them things were going up in the air with me, and they got up into the air, and they started an argument. Arguing, squabbling. One of them said, "Let's take him down in the swamp and eat him." The other one says, "No," he said, "let's take him up in the woods and eat him. You take him down the swamp, the big ones will take him away from us." And I thought, good Lord, any bigger than this? I don't want to go to that swamp. And boy, they were arguing back and forth and yanking and pulling and tugging. And all at once, that patch let loose on the seat of my britches. Well, that mosquito that had a hole in that patch and the seat of my britches banged up against the side of the top of a big pine tree and knocked him right unconscious. And the last I see him had X's in his eyes, and he was headed over end for the ground with that red patch in his feet there, and his hands or claws or whatever them things are, and he was headed for the ground. Well, I swung down like the pendulum on the clock, see? And when I did, that one had a hold of the nape of my shirt. Lost hold of that, and all he had a hold of was them suspenders. And they started stretching, and I started falling for the ground, and them suspenders were stretching and stretching and stretching. I get almost to the ground and start running for the house, and then things would pick me back up again. I go. And down I'd come again. I'd up, and back up I'd go again. And down I'd come again. And finally, after a while, the buttons couldn't hold up no longer. And ding, 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 them buttons started popping off my pants. And them suspenders went up, wrapped around that mosquito, killed him cold stone dead. He and I both headed for the ground. End over end over end. And all at once called whomp. And I thought, good Lord, this must be what it's like to be dead, see? And all at once I heard my mother. Bill, for goodness sakes, will you wake up? My goodness, you must have had a horrible dream. Look at this room. You tipped over your kerosene lamp, and kerosene all over the floor. You broke the globe and that too, you know. Drinking water, look at your drinking glass. Broke that, that's all knocked over. And you've got to cut those toenails, young man. She said, you ripped my good sheets. And, she went after me, hammer and tong, see. And she said, you get yourself straightened around up here and straighten up this room. And don't forget, come down and have a good breakfast, because this morning you got to go up and fix that hog bench for your father. Remember I told you that we used to take a bath in the galvanized tub? I didn't sing that, did I? No. And they always claim, now this is what city folks claim. We all know better, but we always let them get away with it. City folks always said that country folks didn't take a bath only once a week, whether they needed it or not, on a Saturday night. But I must admit, I did know some fellers that did that. And you could tell who they were. Didn't have to wonder much better. Did you ever take your Saturday bath and try to wash and scrub while kneeling down on your haunches in a galvanized bathtub? Well, it's nothing, you ain't seen a thing, but I'm telling you what's right. I did it till I was nearly grown on every Saturday night. Now in summertime it was bad enough, but in winter things really got rough. Lugging that water through all that snow in the buckets and pails and stuff. Well, getting ready for that ordeal was only half the rub of taking the bath on Saturday night in Ma's old galvanized tub. Did you ever stand there stripped to the skin with a wood stove baking your hide, afraid to put your feet in the water for fear you'd burn alive? Now finally you'd get that temperature right, then into the tub you'd crawl. And that cold steel hits you on your back, you know, almost make you squall. Then you're out of the tub, then you're next to the stove, and you stand there shivering and shaking. But the front of your body is freezing to death. The back of your body is a baking, a shivering and a shaking and a burning and a baking is the price you had to pay. And that ordeal will haunt me yet until my dying day. Well, I'm not through yet, there's something else that I've been wanting to say. Now I was the youngest of all 10 kids that bathed on Saturday. Now we all bathed according to age, and I fell last in order, which meant I had to bathe myself and everybody else's water. But now I'm a man of clean habits and believe in a bath a week. It helps to keep me strong and healthy and freshens my physique. But if I had my druthers, why I'd rather eat a bug than take a bath on Saturday night in Mom's old galvanized tub. One of the chores that we had to do when we were kids was fill the wood box. And it didn't make no difference what you wanted to do. If some kids come by, did you ever have kids come by and say, come on, let's go fishing, or let's go play ball, or let's go swimming or something? You couldn't do that unless that wood box was full. That wood box was haunted kids to death. And no matter what you wanted to do, it most generally was empty. I'd say, Ma, can I go fishing with them fellas down the road? They want me to go fishing with them. Have you filled that wood box yet? No, I don't look like you can go fishing then, does it? And some kids will come by and want to play ball. Can I go out and play ball with those guys out in the yard here? Have you filled that wood box yet? No, we don't have it. No ball, so that wood box is full, mister. And so that was the way it went. It set out in the kitchen. It was long and deep and wide. A poker hung above it and a shovel stood beside. It had floured oilcloth tacked around it to keep the cracks and knotholes hid, and a pair of leather hinges fastened to a heavy lid. It didn't have no bottom, at least it seemed that way, when you hurried in to fill it so as to get back out and play. And when the noons were hot and lazy, and the leaves were dry and still, and the locust and the pine trees started up his planing mill, and the drumbeat of the breakers gave a soothing, tempting roll, and you knew the gang was waiting by the brimming swimming hole. Louder than the locust hum, louder than the breakers roar, you could hear that wood box holler, come and fill me up once more. That old clock would tick and chuckle as you let each armful drop. It'd say another minute and you know we're near the top. On the cold wintry mornings when the bed was snug and warm, and the icy winters tinkled from the fingers of the storm, and your breath rose from your pillow in a foggy cloud of steam, and that wood box, grim and empty, would come knocking at your dreams, compounding at your conscience, screaming with aggravating glee. Would you like to sleep this morning? You get up and tend to me. Land sakes, how plain it is this minute. The barns, the sheds of drifted snow, and those slabs of wood awaiting, piled all ready in a row. For there never was a fishing party. There never was a game of ball. But that mean old pesky wood box would have to come and spoil it all. You could study at your lessons. It was full and full to stay. Just our little story. It was empty right away. It seems as though the spite was in it, and although I might forget all those little chores that plagued me, I can hate that wood box yet. And as I look back over my boyhood, chasing off the cares of men, still it comes to spoil my fortune, screaming, fill me up again. And of course, most folks in the North Country still burns wood and have a wood box they have to fill every day. I see some people getting a little antsy here. We can't have that going on. Can't have no antsiness in my shows. Okay. You ever see one of these guys? Harmonica?
I have one.
Do you?
Harmonica.
They're fun to play. You can play those things.
I have one. I have one too.
There's two different ways of doing that. You can do it with your tongue or you can just blow. Or you can use your tongue. Like that, and you plug up the right holes and you get the different notes. Alright, this guy right here, his name is Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie was a famous folk singer and a folk dancer and did a lot of stuff, made a lot of folk songs. Did you ever hear, this land is your land, this land is my land? Woody Guthrie wrote
We have
that.
to sing that at school.
Do you? That's a good song, isn't it? You know where that came from? There used to be a family called the Carter family. And the Carter family used to have a song called, oh, let's see. Oh, little darling, how I love you, how I love you, none can tell. In your heart you love another, little darling pal of mine. See any familiarity there? This land is your land, this land is my land. I'm doing a different key here. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream wide. This land was made for you and me. It's that same tune, doesn't it? That's because Woody Guthrie took the tune for that little pal of mine and made This Land Is Your Land. A lot of songs are like that. You'll hear a lot of folk songs that all have the same tune. That's because they swipe them from one place to another. Because you write the lyrics to a song, then you had to find a tune that would fit it. And sometimes some of the tunes that were already made up fit better than some of the other ones that you were trying to make up. So that's why that happened. That's legal in folk songs. You can do that as long as you tell where it comes from. So Woody Guthrie used to go to people during the Depression. You've heard of the Depression? During the Depression, people lost their homes. They lost everything they had. They didn't have no place to go, and they gathered and started wandering. And they walked and they drove a car until they run out of gas and leave it there and go further. And bunches of people would go and stay in meadows, like you have these meadows around here, would be full of people. So boards leaning up against a tree with some tar paper filled over, sleeping under such things as that. And then Woody Guthrie would hop a train and go to some places and sing songs to these people and try to make them happy because they were the saddest people in the world. And he tried to make them happy, see? So, and he could step dance real good. He's walking down the road one day, and he's going down the road. And, boy, I sure wish I hadn't stepped on my girlfriend's toe last night. She got mad at me and dumped me. Now I don't have anybody to dance with tonight, and I'm going to that dance. I don't have a soul to dance with, and I just don't know what I'm going to do. And all at once he heard a voice over in the field says, I can dance. And he looked over in the field, and there wasn't nothing over there but an old mud puddle with an old frog sitting in the middle of it. And he said, that can't be that frog. And the frog said, that's me. He said, I can dance. He said, and Woody said, why, frogs can't dance. He said, I can dance. So Woody got his mouth organ out, blew on his mouth organ, and he played a little tune there and did a little dance in the middle of the road. He said, can you do this? And he started playing. Frog says, well, I think I can do that. He says, I don't know. We'll see. Well, the frog, he hopped up to the edge of the road. Woody got his mouth organ out. Spitting all over myself this morning. Good grief. I left my manners at home, I guess. Forgot those. Trouble with these things. So the frog, he gets up on the road, and Woody starts playing the mouth organ, and the frog gives it a go. Well, Woody said, that's pretty good. He said, let's see if we can do that together. He said, if we can do that together, we'll go to the dance. We'll entertain them folks over there. Oh, frog said, my God, I got a cramp in my leg. Sitting in that water hole. That'll do it every time. Oh, the frog, my God, I got another cramp. Oh. So there. We went to the dance, and they were dancing away, and Woody got so excited that he kissed that frog. He did. And that, oh, ew, it's awful, wasn't it? And that frog turned into the most beautiful princess that you ever saw in your life. And after that, of course, Woody didn't have to look up nobody else to dance with, because he had the frog princess, and they danced. And they had a good time. Okay? All right. Now, remember I told you I grew up around the Indian guys? Well, they used to tell me some stuff, okay? And I wrote a little song for kids. I want you to pay attention to this song, because it's very, very important. It's probably the most important song I ever have written in my whole life. It's called Better Go Round. And when I was a kid, the school centralized, and they took all of us little country kids and they took us to the village school. You would like this song. Okay. By the time I'm done talking, you'll be... Okay, I thought maybe you were leaving. I see you're just headed for other places. Okay. Anyway, let's see, what was I going to say? The school centralized, and they took all of us country kids and took us to the village schools. And we might as well have been from a foreign country, because it was only like 3 miles away, but they weren't too good to us. Let's put it that way. And made fun of us all the time. And did you ever notice how if there's a kid that's a little strange in school, or a little different, or a different color maybe, or maybe their eyes are shaped a little different, or if they're heavy, little fat kids, or something like that, the other kids will make fun of them? Did you ever notice that? That's a terrible thing to do. It's very, very painful. And it's one of the most painful things in the world. And when I was a kid, I used to get made fun of all the time because I had these patches on my pants, and I had long, shaggy hair, and back at that time, short hair was in, and all the village kids had decent haircuts and all that. And us kids got our hair cut, whenever my mother decided to get the cow clippers out and cut your hair. We had ridges in our hair after the cow clippers. And so, anyway, we got poked fun at a lot. And of course, to counteract that, I would show off. And of course, I still show off for a living. So, it's something that sticks with you. And I used to be ashamed of it, but I'm not anymore. But anyway, I would say goofy things in school and the teachers would get upset with me. And if I could make the kids laugh, why then the teacher would get angry at me and set me in the corner with a dunce hat on my head. So I consider myself a specialist on wallpaper. I can pick out wallpaper about as good as anybody I know of, because I saw a lot of it when I was in school. And I would come home from school at night and big long face on me, and I would say, oh, this was awful today. I'm telling you, I hated it. And this old Indian fella, Mohawk guy, he'd say, having trouble in school? I'd say, sure am. He'd say, talk to your elders. You've got to talk to your elders about that. And he explained to me that my teachers were some of my best elders, and I should talk to the teachers. Well, what he didn't realize was that the teacher was the one that stuck me in the corner, and I wasn't so sure that they were the ones I ought to talk to or not. But he said, your teachers will help you. If you got a problem, go to your teacher. And your other elders, of course, is your grandparents and your grandmother and grandfather and your father and mother and all that. Some aunts and uncles, and not brothers and sisters, because sometimes brothers and sisters don't have both oars in the water either, see. So they aren't such good ones to talk to. But he said teachers could keep a secret. And he explained to me that sometimes you notice that when teachers get older, they get a little broader across the beam. That's all them years and years of secrets piling up in there. That's what causes that. And so, in case there's any teachers in here wondering why that's happening, that's what it is. And so, then he would tell me how your ancestors might die, your elders might die, but they'd come back as animals. And so I used to listen to the animals. And you say, you want to listen to them, especially the old bullfrogs. And the old bullfrog would say, vroom, vroom, vroom. And you listen close to that, and you know what they're saying? Let her go around, let her go around, let her go around, let her go around. And a little peeper crowd. Now that's good advice, see, for a kid that's sinking in the muck. You take nowadays in school, kids are doing a lot of things that are really stupid. You know, really bad stuff. Getting into drugs and drinking and sniffing kids and all this stuff. That's horrible stuff. You're killing yourself doing that stuff, see? And these kids that are doing that will try to get you to do some of that someday, and you want to say, no, I'm not going to do that, because I'm not that stupid. And so, you want to, when that happens, go and tell your teacher, don't do it in front of the other kids, but make sure that you do it when they're not looking, and get out of that mess. Don't ever do what some other kids are trying to get you to do. I call that muck. And the next thing you know, you're sinking in the muck, like that old bullfrog. See, he's saying, let her go around, let her go around, let her go around. So when the kid's trying to get you to do something like that you know you're not supposed to do, think about, let her go around. And about that frog, see. And that little peeper frog, it's about small kids' age, he's saying, knee-deep, knee-deep, knee-deep. And he'll think, well, knee-deep, I can wade right across that swamp, see. And next thing you know, they're sinking in that muck right up to their neck. And so I wrote this little song. Listen to it. Now young Billy Brown went a-walking one day, out in the fields to romp and play. Came to the swamp at the edge of the bog and stood there a while, listened to the frogs. And as he listened with confusion and frown, he heard the little frog say, "Beep, beep." But he heard the old frog say, go around, go around. Well, that old bullfrog was sitting not a log with his eyes bugged out, eating flies like a hog. And that old frog said, young Bill Brown, go around, go around, go around. But that cute little peeper frog looked so neat, with his little speckled back and his skinny little feet. He said, beep, beep, just knee-deep, beep, beep, just knee-deep, just knee-deep. Young Bill thought, well, it might swell across if it's just knee-deep. Already got me a couple wet feet, so the poor little guy went a-wading in, sunk in the muck, never seen. Old Froggy felt pretty bad. There wasn't much he could do about it. He says, poor Bill Brown. Should have gone around. Should have gone around. Should have gone around. So when you're out there walking through the fields of life, and you come to those swamps and troubles and strife, don't go waiting in the muck and sinking down. Think of them frogs. Young Bill Brown. Go around. Go around. Go around. Don't listen to folks because they're cute and they're neat. They might lead you, they're out in the deep. Listen to your elders because they've been around. You want to end up like young Bill Brown. When them elders say, go around, you go around, go around, go around. I even taught my guitar how to say that. Yeah? Even the guitar knows you better go around. One more look and I'll let you escape, alright? Okay. I'm going to do the Three Little Pigs for you, alright? But I don't know if you've ever heard it done this way or not. I'm going to do it backwards. Alright? Once upon a time, there was 3 little pigs. Actually, there was 5 poodle legs when you get right down to it, counting Father Mid and Father Pig, see? And the 3 little pigs, they decided they wanted to leave home. So, they kissed Father Mig goodbye at the gate. Oh, Father Mig just felt horrible. And so the first poodle leg, he's rocking down the road, and he sees a man winding on a wagon. And he says, hey, mister, that stroke of law you got there? Well, he said, it certainly says poodle leg. He said, you suppose I could buy that stroke of law? I want to heal myself about it. Well, he said, you currently sent. So he bought the stroke of law, and he healed him a bells. It was a Hollis, of course. Hadn't any more and got finished, and who come along? With that wig-wad fool. And he says, poodle leg, let me come in. Poodle leg says, not by the chair, my hin. Well, said the wig-wad folks, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll hold your belts down. And he did. He puffed and he puffed, pulled his belts down, and he ate that poodle leg. boom, hauled him swole right down. Second foot of leg, he's rocking down the road, and he sees a man waiting on the rag. Hey, mister, is that a stroke of licks you got there? He said, well, it's this foot of leg. He said, suppose I could buy that stroke of licks. I want to heal myself a bells. Well, he said, you currently send it. So he bought the stroke of licks, and he healed himself a bells. That hip stout, you see. Hadn't any more and got finished, and who come along? That wig-wed bull. He said, foot of leg, let me come in. And foot of leg says, not by the chair, my hinny in him. Well, said the wig-wad bolt, and I'll hop and I'll puff and I'll hold your belts down. And he did. He hopped and he puffed, hold his belts down, and he ate that foot leg too. Boom, hauled, swole right down behind the other one. Now, third foot leg, he's a little smarter, see. So he sat down there on the corner for about 3 weeks, waiting for the right chance. And who come along? With a man waiting on a wagon with a brood of licks. And he said, hey, mister, is that a brood of licks? Well, he said, it earnestly says brood of licks. He said, you suppose I could buy that brood of licks? I want to heal myself a bells. Well, he said, you currently said. So he bought the brood of licks, and he healed him a bells. It was a hip brow. So this thing was beautiful, see. Had a big, huge hitch, you know, it was a big one. And one in Rotter had 2 raft brooms in it, a big rump broom with call-to-call warpit, and a fireplace in the far end. Oh, it's gorgeous. Well, he was exhausted when he got on his sunseat, so he pulls up his cheesy air in front of the fireplace and got his feet up and just started ozed off. And who come along with that wig-wad bull? And he says, foot of leg, let me come in. Foot of leg says, not but a chair, my hinny in him. Well, said the wig-wad bull, and I'll hop and I'll puff and I'll hold your belts down. Foot of leg says, you can hop and you can puff, but you can't hold this belts down. This is the hip belts, and you can't hold this belt down. And the wig-wad bull, he gave it a shot anyway. He hopped, he puffed, nothing happened. Puff and hop, nothing happened. He says, foot of leg, you're absolutely rude. I can't hold your belts down. But he said to himself, I'm going to get that little porker. If it's the last thing I ever do, he said, they're going to rhyme up on the cove, so they're going to chide down the slimly, and I'm going to eat him right in the rump room, right by the fireplace. Well, he started rhyme up on the cove, put a leg, saw that tailboat edge, and he ran into that big, huge hitching, and got him a great big kettle of boiling hot water. Well, he shoved that boiling hot water right into that fireplace, just as that wigwam both chid down that slimly. And when he hit that boiling hot water, he said, ouch! And about that time, the foot of leg ran into the big, huge hitching again and got him a real narc shot. And he ripped open that wig-wad bolt, and out jumped 2 little brothers. Remember, he hauled them swole? You gotta chew your food, see? Well, they danced and they sang, and that night they had wolf burgers and pigweed greens for supper. After supper, they went into the rump room and laid on that call-to-call warpit and stole stories to each other until they fell fast asleep. Thank you very much. You guys know something? That you guys sat there, like good little angels, for about 1 hour and 10 minutes. Isn't that something? You're all right. You guys are all right. I don't care what your mothers say about you.
Thank you, Bill.
I'm not an angel. No way. You can't see me. Yeah, you're just devil. Yeah, you're the devil.
You can go home and practice your backward stories.